with Richard Southern. And Richard, there's no shortage of intriguing stories to chat about today. Let's begin with something that many Canadians are struggling to explain.
Turns out, Erica, UFO sightings are through the roof. New report from ufology research. There were 1,243 recorded sightings last year, a record for Canada.
Whatever they are,
there's a whole fleet of them.
They seem to defy the rules of physics, hovering in the wind, stopping instantly, and moving extremely fast at hypersonic speeds.
On a pitch-black night off the coast of California, newly leaked video allegedly shows one of the U.S. Navy's stealth ships tracking an unknown object in the sky. And after a few minutes,
Splashed. Mark bearing and range.
The 2019 footage obtained by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, who last month released another video of an upside-down pyramid UFO hovering above a Navy destroyer.
This is part of a much larger series of events that we're going to be learning about.
The Pentagon confirming the video was taken by Navy personnel.
The first theory, software glitches in the tracking radars create on-screen illusions, but a government source says there were no glitches, and the veteran Navy pilots are very credible.
As it gets in front of me, it just goes poof, it's gone. It's gone like that fast.
A las 7, a la misma altura.
Hay unas nubes ahí, se ve de ver esto.
Pero, a ver, busquen eso que viene atrás de nosotros.
Ve cómo se ve como en dos partes. Se van a ver bien, pues. Y van a una velocidad, pero... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 en la pantalla.
Síguelo, no lo cierres.
There was an incident in 2014 where a military helicopter got video of a strange object. It kind of looked like a rocket with some sort of plume behind it. And they said they were at about 4,500 feet.
They have 9 minutes of fairly clear video that exists on this. The Chilean military studied it for 2 years, and they were not able to identify this at all.
Chile, like many other South American countries, seem to be far more open to the idea that there are objects coming into our airspace.
2011. A resident of Jerusalem is out for a stroll when a bright light over the old city catches his eye. He begins to film, and this is what his camera captures. A bright ball of light hangs over the old city. Strange on its own, but then it drops down to just above the buildings, hovers, and amazingly zooms straight up, literally in the blink of an eye. This isn't just happening anywhere. The orb, or whatever it is sighted over one of Earth's holiest places, the Dome of the Rock, also known as the Temple Mount.
Some people said, there's something strange out there. There were a lot of opportunities to see inexplicable things, such as UFOs, that were monitoring the sky and training in the sky.
According to Sato, numerous pilots have reported highly unusual encounters with what they described as cigar-shaped objects. For years, pilots in the Japanese military were instructed to remain silent about such incidents. But in September 2020, Japan's decades-long policy of secrecy and denial came to an end. Many believe this very public shift in policy was prompted by a meeting held 1 month earlier between Minister Kono and his U.S. counterpart, Defense Secretary Mark Esper.
What you're telling me is that UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are real.
Bill, I think we're beyond that already. The government has already stated for the record that they're real. I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they move, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern.
And now they're establishing the Japanese Space Operations Squadron. Says to me that there clearly is something going on over the skies of Japan.
Ancient astronaut theorists suggest governments throughout the world are finally beginning to acknowledge that there may be objects in our skies that are not of this Earth.
Hello, welcome to this press conference of the Embassy for Extraterrestrials project. Thank you so much for taking your precious time to be with us today. My name is Sharon. I'm originally from Israel, and it's a great pleasure for me to be your host and moderator today. During this short presentation, we will share the project as a whole, the different steps of the project, the architectural blueprints, and we'll take some time at the end to do our best to answer any questions you may have. So without further ado, I would love to introduce to you an admirable man, Mr. Daniel Turcotte, a businessman from Canada, who has been for the past 12 years the Director General of the Embassy for Extraterrestrial Project. Thank you so much, Daniel. The stage is yours.
Thank you, dear Sharon, for your kind words. I thank you all for your precious presence and your openness. I am grateful for your time and consideration, and I feel so privileged to be with you all today because I know how busy you are. As you know, we are living in a very exciting times right now. Our world is changing, and I'm sure that you are witnessing a great awakening on a planetary level. But from my point of view, this awakening would not be complete if it didn't include the UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena and the awareness that we are not alone in the universe. Many experts, politicians, high-ranking military, government officials, organizations, as well as public figures have spoken publicly on the subject. We are anticipating the most important moment in humanity's history, the official and open face-to-face meeting with an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. But for this project to materialize, we must meet a few conditions because we have never faced such a situation in our history. We need a paradigm shift because we will deal with a historical event, and I think that we have to think outside the box. Our planner, Steve Goldie, will explain the Embassy for Extraterrestrials project steps and an optional protocol to the Vienna Convention in a few minutes before our architect, Claude Chevet, presents the plan of the Embassy. As you can imagine, many have asked us, why do extraterrestrials need an embassy? As they could just come here and meet with world leaders. They could, of course. But I think that we could agree that an unannounced and unprepared arrival would be catastrophic and could result in complete confusion and chaos. We must first prepare the public and the world governments. Then a formal diplomatic protocol needs to be implemented and followed, so we can welcome them with the respect they deserve. This is why we need extraterrestrials, but not only. To welcome them, we also need to avoid welcoming them with military arsenal, as it happened so many times in our recent history. And very important, we need to have a diplomatic framework to show them that we are ready to welcome them officially and peacefully. That's all for me for the moment, and I'll see you in a little later for the conclusion. So, dear Sharon, the mic is yours.
All right, moving on with our next speaker, Stephen Goldie, an executive-level international urban planner and designer with vast experience ranging from regional and metropolitan strategy to complex inner-city urban design, from railways to subways, and from high-level policy to complex management issues. Stephen, please go ahead.
Thanks, Shanti, and hello, everybody. What I'm going to present you today is essentially the plan from where we are now to the point at which we can start building the embassy. And of course, Claude will talk about the embassy itself. So let's get straight into the presentation. An embassy for extraterrestrials. What an amazing project, and oh so much needed. But whatever the project, perhaps the more important the project, the more important the process. We have a well understood, well followed process that minimizes the likelihood of problems keeps costs to a minimum, and so on. And that process here, project definition, how do I fully understand the project? And then usually for a major project there's a scoping study to identify potential sites. Feasibility study of the most promising site, and that of course informs the due diligence and permits the site acquisition. Then the master plan, which is exactly what it says, get everything coordinated and make sure you have all the approvals. At the end of the master plan, you're usually breaking into design and construction packages, and you can see some typical such packages there. And then of course, if everything's scheduled correctly, you go into a commissioning and then operations phases. So, project definition. Sorry, that's the summary. We'll follow the summary throughout the process, throughout this presentation. So the project definition. Did the project definition, talked to the team, got a good understanding of what is involved, read the references, came to some conclusions. No extraterrestrial will want to deal with the disunited and disjointed humankind. So until their ground rules, well, they probably won't deal with us. Millions of tourists will not fly thousands of kilometres to visit a fake embassy for extraterrestrials. It has to be a real embassy. And therefore the rules are just as important on that point. So we need the diplomatic issues to be resolved before we proceed to determine a site. No good choosing a site and then finding out that the diplomatic rules are not agreed to by that government. So we have to insert in this one the diplomatic initiative. So what's a diplomatic initiative involve? There's a brief history of diplomatic relations, history of a major topic in one slide. So they've been around time immemorial, a way for one ruler to communicate with another through an intermediary, through someone that they trust, they send to the other ruler's court. They do negotiations and so on. Everyone knows what an ambassador does. They're traditionally treated as a guest, and the special rules about not subjecting them to interrogation or confinement or arrest or anything like that. They're first codified in 1815, but the current convention is from 1961. There it is, some of the people working on it, and it came into effect on the 24th of April 1964. Importantly, there are two optional protocols which came in around the same time. One about the acquisition of nationality and one about compulsory settlement of disputes. They're optional protocols. So things that were agreed to by some parties but not all parties were taken out of the main convention and put in as optional protocols, and those nations that wanted to adopt them could, those that didn't have to. That optional protocol mechanism is very useful. So the diplomatic initiative for this project builds on the Vienna Convention by providing a third optional protocol, and we provisionally titled it the Optional Protocol Concerning Embassies for Extraterrestrials. That of course is a draft. The most important thing now is to have that discussed in diplomatic circles and adopted by at least a few countries. So there's a few ways we can proceed. One, a country can adopt the protocol unilaterally, witnessed of course by ambassadors from another couple of countries. Two or more countries can sign the protocol and deposit a copy with the UN. The UN is just a depository there. A country can instruct its UN ambassador to request the United Nations Secretary General to work with the International Rally Movement to present the protocol to the UN. A country could volunteer to host a convention to discuss the draft protocol. That's it, no obligation, just bring diplomats from various countries around the table to discuss the protocol. But if the protocol proceeds and is adopted, then it would become the protocol from that city concerning embassies for extraterrestrials. Or perhaps we missed something and there's a better mechanism, and of course we're happy to consider it. So the project definition's done, the diplomatic initiative is progressing. Before you can do the scoping study, the feasibility study and site acquisition, you need a concept master plan. You need some idea of what we're talking about. It's not the final plan, it's cartoonish a little bit, it's indicative, but you have to have it to be able to do those things, otherwise the consultants don't know what they're looking for. So go back to the source documents and look for the specifications. The key ones there, 1,000 meters from the edge of the building, so not from the center, but from the edge of the building. and a number of points of entry, utilities, the airspace, that's a diplomatic matter, and neutral territory, that's a diplomatic matter rather than a design matter. And so there we have a big round wall of 1,000 metres radius is a tricky thing to build, so 6 straight walls are much easier. Fitting that into a rectangle leaves some extra space, about 30 hectares in each corner for other uses. Particularly, of course, we need car parking, security area and so on, a conference centre, a scientific institute and so on, site accommodation for staff, and depending on what utilities are available, various types of plant in order to be able to operate the whole thing. So, and of course a perimeter fence around the outside of the whole thing, and along those 2 side walls you'll see there's a need for a little track running down the side between the actual wall and the boundary fence. So all of that gives us those areas, essentially 5 square kilometres. So what are the benefits for the host country if they decide that they want to be considered for this project? First of all, there's direct investment. It's an approximate figure, of course. We can't know the exact figure till the master plan is complete, and even the feasibility study will still be an approximation. But we think around that figure for the actual investment to construct the whole facility. And then tourism during that whole process. And once it's built, a lot of emphasis on tourism, of course, because that will keep the whole thing operating. But after ET arrival, it will be the hottest destination of all time. There will be no place on the planet more important than this embassy after the arrival of the extraterrestrials. And that will justify building a new city nearby, much, much bigger than a single science institute. And we call that city tentatively Scientopolis. So the big question, of course, is how much tourism? You can build an attraction, but will people come to it? And of course, it's pre-ET arrival. So here you have cultural tourism's top 7 from before COVID, of course. And you can see the biggest of those by far is New Mexico, which includes Roswell. Roswell, of course, has famous ET connections, and it fuels a massive part of New Mexico's visitations. After that, you can see the others, Great Pyramids of Giza, half of what New Mexico gets. And then falling steadily below those. The 2 you can't see, the Taj Mahal is about 7.5 million and Eiffel Tower is about 7 million. By the way, the UK gets about £1 billion worth of income from the visitors that just come for the crop circles. It's just crop circles. £1 billion worth of income. So what are our projections? Well, we think 3 million visitors a year would be quite modest. An average spend of about 800 per visitor is quite normal. So we're talking about a total spend of US 2.4 billion a year, which, as I said, is not that much more. It's less than double of what the UK gets just from crop circles, which of course are transient, only a few months of the year, and you don't know for sure where they will be. Somewhere in the croplands, of course, in the middle of the country. After ET arrival, who knows? You won't be able to count it. They'll be building new airports. So, and that's where we're up to. That's the process so far and our projections. And let's finish off the presentation then. Well, I hope you can all appreciate what a fantastic project this is, what an honour it is to be part of the project. I'll hand you back to Shanti, and I look forward to your questions later. Thank you. Bye.
Wow, thank you so much, Stephen, for sharing this incredible information with us. So now moving forward with our next speaker, Claude Chauvet, a Swiss architect and visual artist who began his autodidact career at 14, studying under renowned architects such as Charles Balma, Mario Boda, Claude Parent, and Antti Lavage, to name a few. Distinctive in design, Claude brings architecture to a new level, incorporating contemporary needs while expressing his artistic flair via the modern of design. He lived in the US since 1995. So I invite Claude, please.
Hi everybody, my name is Claude Chauvet. I'm privileged to be the chief architect of the embassy. I'm originally from Switzerland. I've been working on this project since day one, 1990, when it first started. I'm talking about this project of the embassy. It will be explained later on. And I hope you're going to enjoy what I'm presenting you here. And not much to say more about me than for you to enjoy the work that we done. Thank you so much for watching. Here we can see how the building of an embassy will impact a site. In our particular case, it will generate a city around it. It's not every day that we're building an embassy to welcome an ET civilization to Earth. Can you imagine the financial impact having a city all around this embassy? It's going to be phenomenal. Wow, the society will completely switch and change our relationship with the universe. What an experience. The world of tomorrow starting now. Blueprint, Chapter 2. Here actually you can see a real blueprint. They are not blue, but black and white. 1,870 square meters going to be built on the slab foundation. With a south entrance, a welcoming room, an aseptic chamber, a conference room, an access, a residential area of 1,226 square meters, an access, a dining room of 146 square meters, and a north entrance. That we are able to find out thanks to the blueprint. Here, zooming in, we are in the reception area, the welcoming room, with all its dimension, its material descriptive, the stair level, the size, and the volume of the space. Here, zooming on the quarter area, the living space, you can see the size, the dimension, and the design of those apartments that are for the extraterrestrial visiting the planet. Here are the elevation, all the elevation for different angles with a section. How does the blueprint translate for the general public to better understand it? It's called perspective. Chapter 3, we're going to talk a little bit about history of the embassy of today, how it began, okay? And for that, we have to go a little bit, few thousand years ago. History of the embassy. History of the embassies. And I insist, embassies, plural. As many Jews mentioned, the third temple will come from the sky. Could it be this embassy? The first two temples was to me an embassy. We call them temple. Solomon temple, Herod temple, the first two embassies to welcome God, or to welcome an ET civilization perceived as a God. And now we ready ourselves to build the third temple, the embassy, for those who will come back from the sky. But here the project that I'm about to present you, in fact, started in 1990. So here in 1990, Jacques Isaac, Antti Lovac, and myself trying to build the very first scale model of the embassy. What a moment, what an experience back then. The idea was to build an island in which could travel in any international water to avoid the need of extraterritoriality. that was not the vision that Roel had in mind, because extraterritoriality is needed for us to promote peace on Earth. The design of Antilovag was not the vision of Metroia. Metroia decided to nominate Jacques Isaac to be the architect, the official architect of the project Embassy. And he therefore gave him a hand draft. Here I have a replica for you to see how approximately the hand draft of Metroia was back then, just giving the dimension, the size, and the orientation, etc. and so forth. Up to this day, Jacques Isaac came with this design well known, who has lasted more than 30 years up to today. The white donuts, the way I call it, with the 3 ping-pong ball in the front and in the back, joined by tunnels. And here I'm going to present you a more defined approach, an architectural approach of this design. So this one is for you, Jacques Isaac, in memory of your leadership. I hope we carry on the light. So on the next one, let's talk about the elevation here. I get inspired by the flower of all life, you will see. We prepare a little slideshow on that. And also by the fact that we believe those extraterrestrials created us thanks to mastering manipulation, the manipulation of DNA, the genetic manipulation. And you will see I combine the flower of light with the DNA movement on the facade. To better understand blueprint, best to go directly in 3D. So here's a presentation. You can see in 3D the slab foundation of the building, the 1,870 square meter slab foundation. It is to me way much more clear, and I think it is the work of people to understand when you come in 3D. Here are the vertical access and elevator. As you can see, there is 4 of them in the center livable space, the quarter of the extraterrestrial, because they need to access to their landing pad. Level 1 and level 2, to better understand the access, you have to admit, like when you see a rendering, it really allows you to understand better than a regular blueprint in terms of elevation, coloring, material, and it looks like real. That's the way of approaching the new blueprint of tomorrow, 3D rendering, with the bearing wall to better define the space. Here you can see the structure of the embassy. The structure looks like the DNA, like the shape of a DNA crossing with one another. It's going to be manufactured. The embassy fully completed, filled up with marble glass between the travertine structure. Open petal to welcome the creator from space. Chapter 5, Random Perspective. Just for you to have a feel of what it is going to look like in and out. So here are some random perspective in and out. As you can see, in those perspectives, you can already feel the materials that are used. Marble for the flooring, travertine for the structure. Also, you can see how open and how much light can come in with those giant windows, special windows. I think it's very enjoyable space, and I hope you do enjoy it as well. The objective was to give an harmony between the in and out penetration of light. A welcome opening petal, like a lotus, offering herself, and I hope our visitor from space, coming from above, will enjoy their ride when the petal will open for them. To conclude here, choose the team. Here, a special thanks to the pool team. With a project like that, you cannot be working alone. So I thank William too particularly for the last 3 months, who had helped me to render this project. Thank you so much there, William. Also, I thank Marco for his study and research into the details, especially the details of the opening, pedal, the window and door, etc. And Genshin will have to work now. His time has come, in the sense he's going to be the landscape architect. But for that, we need to find the land precisely where that's going to be built. So their team, thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Claude, for this beautiful presentation. So in conclusion, and before going to the Q&A session, having the support of the United Nations would give legitimacy to our project and help opening the door to an international conference to discuss the optional protocol Steve talked about earlier in his presentation. I think it's important for you to know that in 2019, we sent a letter to the United Nations and informed you about their answer. So here's their answer. Any proposal to be considered by the members of the United Nations must first be presented to the ambassador of the member state for his or her consideration prior to formal inscription on the organization's agenda and subsequent vote by the membership. So, after receiving this response, we immediately asked our continental and national leaders to write to their member state ambassador. In addition, an international campaign was organized last year, and more than 3,000 e-letters were sent to state member ambassadors, and we are still following up on this action. So the Embassy for Extraterrestrial is not only a dream. We have been working for more than 40 years and increasingly for 15 years or so, because it's becoming obvious that the extraterrestrials are preparing us for official contact. It's important to mention that a significant part of the funds has been raised by the promoter and hundreds of thousands of supporters worldwide. Our supporters are the following. First, the members of the International Raelian Movement, the largest UFO/extraterrestrial organization in the world with more than 100,000 members in 120 countries. Private donation from supporters. We have more and more. And it is very important to note that tens of millions of dollars were already raised for this project. So when the time comes, thousands of people will invest and donate money to build the embassy and surroundings. We are convinced about that because we already receive a lot of interest from many people. Finally, extraterrestrials are not invaders. If so, we would probably agree on the fact that they would have invaded us a long time ago. They are simply preparing us for official contact and wish to be welcome in accordance with human laws and diplomatic protocols. So once again, I thank you very, very much. And Sharon, please, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. Wow. Thank you for organizing this incredible event, for sharing this incredible information. It's definitely going to be the most important event in human history. So now we're going to give some time for questions, if you have any. We're going to open the chat, and you'll be able to write your questions, and one of our speakers will do their best to answer it. Let's try to keep the chat clean so we can see only the questions, because there are almost 350 people. So yeah, the chat is open now. So any questions you may have, just go ahead and write them down in the chat box. If you prefer in your own language, our translators will do their best to translate it. We have 8 languages today. To make sure I see all of you. Okay, there's one question from Lawrence. If we made the request to Israel, to the Israeli government, Steve or Daniel, if you would like to answer that one.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, go ahead, Steve. I don't know if Leon is there. If Leon is there, he could answer. But go ahead, Steve.
My understanding is that many approaches have been made to the Israeli government, but that was before my involvement in this project. Since this project, all governments have been contacted 3 times, I think, in various ways, but by written letter to members of the government.
Yeah, Israel was solicited 7 times, and they refused every time. So I don't know if Leon is there. If Leon is there, please raise your hands.
I don't even need to say more. There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Next one there, it says the location embassy been decided. If not, what will be the process behind it? First of all, we need the diplomatic issues resolved. As I said, we've proposed a optional protocol, but however, the process, the diplomatic matters need to be resolved. Once that's resolved, all of those countries that agree with that diplomatic protocol and have signed it, they will then be able to be part of the scoping study, and the scoping study will decide the site or the preferred site. We'll then look at it in detail to do a feasibility to make sure that it works.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, our next question here, we have, what is the expected timeline for construction to commence? And is there going to be an adequate funding to do so, and at that time when we start the project? Stephen, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'm happy to. The timeline, of course, is preliminary. It depends on, you can't do the next step until the first step is completed, and currently the step is the diplomatic initiative. But if that is resolved, from then it's about 8 years to proceed to construction. So if we resolve the diplomatic initiative in 2022, we should be working on construction by 2030. Will there be adequate funding? There is adequate funding now. That's in the bank.
Yes, thank you. All right, so we have a couple of questions related. What is expected from people joining here today, or how can they get involved? Daniel, if you want to answer this question.
Oh, yeah, of course. How can they get involved? Well, they are already involved by being here, because the goal of this event today is to inform people and to make sure that they will be ready when something is happening. This is very, very important. The diplomatic aspect of the project is very important, but the very goal of the ET Embassy Day is to bring awareness to the population in general. So this is exactly why we organized this. Earlier this week, we organized other events for journalists and for diplomats. But as for today, the goal is to inform you the best we can about this project. So yeah, that's about it. Unless you have something to add there, Steve.
Very simple. Write to your member of parliament or to your congressman and tell them you want them to take action to support the diplomatic protocol.
Il a changé sa coiffure de l'autre côté.
Leon, we can hear you now. Leon, if you want to comment regarding Israel, from your experience, you should be able to unmute now.
Go ahead, Sharon, with other questions. We can come back to Leon later.
All right. Is there any country that accepted to get involved in this project already? Daniel? Or Stevens, please go ahead.
We have had discussions with representatives of a number of countries.
Yeah, that's all we can say for now.
Yeah.
Any identified possible locations so far? So again, same answer.
Yes.
There are some negotiations, but they're in the confidential status at the moment.
Yeah, we have to be aware that it's a long process because we have to make sure that the diplomats and the politicians will be able to think outside the box, which is very difficult because they have their own paradigm, and we have a lot of education to do with them. So, but it's going on. It's going fine, and as you can see, we have a wonderful team to support that beautiful project, and we are very, very optimistic that something great will happen soon. The diplomatic issue should be fixed. We hope that the first country could be signing this year or next year to support the optional protocol. And this is a step one. This is, as for now, the most important step. Correct me, Steve, if I'm wrong, but for the moment, this is what I see.
No, absolutely correct. And at the moment, our trigger for the scoping study is 3 countries, but it could be with 1 country. A scoping study, remember, we'll look at multiple sites in multiple countries. Countries are, big, and there'll be more than 1 potential site in any 1 country. So the scoping study is exactly that. Look right around and have a look and see what is possible. But only of those countries that have agreed on the diplomatic protocol. Waste of time talking to any other country. Wow, we've got 55 questions in there. We better move.
All right, there's an interesting questions here. How are the ETs preparing us for their arrival?
Daniel, I think that's yours.
That's mine. Oh, how they are preparing us. Look at the sky. There will be more and more sightings. It's written in the message that Maitreya Rail received in 1973 that as the time goes by, there will be more and more UFO sightings. And also, only in New York City from 2019 to 2020, there was an increase of more than 200% in UFO sightings. So there are more and more. And the crop circles are more and more explicit, more and more clear. I don't know if you remember in last August, there was a crop circle in England that was looking quite similar to the Rayleigh symbol, to the infinity symbol. So this is the way they are helping us and they are preparing us, but we don't know what's next. Maybe some surprise. They will surprise us with something even bigger. I don't know. I have no information about this, but let's see what happens. But for now, UFO sightings and crop circles, this is what we have. This is the information we have. So I hope it answers the question.
Thank you, Daniel. All right. So what happens if no country will grant the necessary land requirement until 2035? Or what will happen then?
Steve?
We review the project definition every year. Okay, so we will just review and adjust.
But they will arrive. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that one day one country will accept to sign the optional protocol. It's just a matter of time. You know, in most projects, usually time is your worst enemy. But in this kind of project, it's the opposite. Time is our best ally, because with time, some new disclosures will happen. There will be more and more scientific proof to confirm the message. And it's going to become more and more clear for governments that something is happening. And I can tell you,
mon microphone est fermé.
Léon, we hear you. Your microphone is unmuted. So please wait 1 minute.
Thank you, Daniel. Sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah, so that's about it. I hope it's clear. And Steve, don't hesitate to jump in.
Just add the report to Congress last year. The public report was very brief, but apparently the secret report to members of Congress was very detailed. And of course, we have President Obama's announcement that UFOs are real. All of that is building momentum. The amount of discussions we're in now, you can see it's very, very likely this will be resolved. The diplomatic process resolved within a year or two. And after that, we're into a normal town planning process. That's, you know, everyone involved in this business around the world understands. So that will then roll along.
Yeah, and don't forget that for the first time in our history, the United Nations replied to our letters.
Yes.
In May 2019. So this is to me, this is exceptional. And not only they replied, but they told us what to do so the project could be presented in front of the UN Assembly. So that was a big step forward for us. What do you think, Steve?
Yes, agreed. But there's lots of questions, so let's move through.
All right, so we have a question.
The next one? Yeah.
Have a question from Maria, maybe for you, Daniel. Are you receiving advice from the ETs directly about how to build this project?
Well, the only advice we are receiving is from Maitreya Rael himself, because he is the link between the Elohim and the humanity. So no, I don't receive any specific information. I just report to Maitreya every 2-3 months, the actions, the process, and if there are some adjustment to do, he's telling me what to do. But so far, he's always telling me the same. We're on the right track. Keep on doing the good work. So this is what we're doing. We have to be very patient, but patient doesn't mean we don't do anything. Patience means it's going to take time, but we have to do something. And this is exactly what we do. So no, we don't receive any specific information, but we know that we are on the right track. That's the most important.
All right, another question from Denise. How do we know that they are coming in peace?
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, because if they weren't, they already would have taken over. I suggest people with this sort of interest should check out that book if it's visible. Okay. UFOs and Government, a Historical Inquiry by Michael Swords and Robert Powell. And everything you want to know about that aspect is in that book. There's the record of UFO contact since the historical, accurate record of UFO contact since the Second World War. And clearly that's more than enough time for an invasion if they wanted to do that.
Sharon, I think there's a group in Ouagadougou. So they raise their hands. Maybe we could hear them. I think it's a big group in the room.
Centralian. Okay. So you should be able to unmute your microphone now. In Ouaga.
Ouaga, on attend votre question.
Ok, merci bien. Je suis ici Constantin Da, le journaliste. Je voudrais savoir, vous parlez de la construction des ambassades. Est-ce que si un pays était d'accord, cette ambassade, qui va assurer le budget de construction? Ça, c'est la première question. Deuxième question.
Second question. Why United Nations are directly touched to facilitate the construction of this embassy? Why not touching country by country? Thank you.
Les fonds pour la construction de l'ambassade, nous les avons déjà en partie. Donc, pour moi,
so for me, the question is solved, and we are convinced as soon as the construction will be announced, funds will arrive in larger quantity. That's what we believe. We already have the donator for the embassy project. So why going by United Nations? Because it's the only organization at the moment that manage the diplomatic relation. This saying, we also solicited each country of the world one by one, including Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, every country in Africa, every country of the world. We receive a few answers, but nothing concluding for the moment. So does that answer your question, my dear friend?
All right, there's a question about...
Do you think that after the construction of the embassy and the arrival of the extraterrestrial, we will have peace in the whole world? In fact, it's the opposite. We have to have peace in the whole world if we wish that the Elohim land on earth. Because they will not come if humans keep killing each other, making wars. It's one of the essential conditions to their arrival, specifically that there's peace on earth. And what do you do so there's peace? Oh, well, a lot. We do actions, pacific action. We sensibilize people to meditate for peace. The Raelian philosophy is a peace religion. You only have to read the message to realize this. Peace, unity, love, harmony between humans. And all this by a justice. There cannot be justice if there's no justice. There's so many injustice in the world that the Raelian movement goes in this way. And we propose a political system that's called paradism that would allow the whole humanity to live in a true paradise without work, without unemployment, where everybody could blossom 100% in an ideal frame. So go on the site of the Raelian movement, rael.org, and go under the tab Causes, the causes we defend, and the action we do to favorize peace and justice in the world. You will have all information. Next question.
All right. So there's a question about the infrastructure, like power, water, for the embassy compound. What would it look like? Will it blend in the host nation? Is it self-sustaining? Or if there's any comments about the infrastructure of the embassy?
Yeah, that's for me in the first instance. Yes, look, there is the initial concept plan that I showed provided 30 hectares in one corner for all of the infrastructure necessary to support the embassy. And that has plenty of space even for solar panels and windmills if we're remote from power. But exactly what infrastructure we need won't be determined until the feasibility study, when we'll assess what's available, what the cost is to bring new infrastructure in, who will pay for that cost, whether it will be government or us. They're all details you can't know till you actually have a site to investigate.
Thank you, Stephen. There are some questions in French and Spanish. So if the translator, I know you're very, very busy, but we have a few translators for each languages. So the one who is not translating right now, you can maybe just translate the message into the chat. My Spanish is not that good yet. My French is so-so. Daniel, if you see also a message in French, that would be great. I see a few. Okay, there's a question regarding the UN. Does the UN has positive decision towards the embassy status?
No, the United Nations, the permanent members of the Security Council, of which the United Nations is one, can only veto actions by the United Nations. Each country is sovereign and can make its own decisions, provided they're not breaking a treaty that country has signed, and there's no treaty preventing embassies for extraterrestrials. Actually, what we want is a treaty that provides rules for extraterrestrials. But yeah, that's not a possibility in using the United Nations veto. Diplomatic pressure, of course, is another matter. But why would they want to pressure someone not to have an embassy to extraterrestrials? Cannot understand that.
What are the expectations in order to meet the extraterrestrials? Say maybe the conditions or expectations?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Daniel, do you know?
I'm not sure to understand either. Maybe the person can explain a little bit more. The expectation from
what is
who?
expected of us, humanity, to be able to meet them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Steve, maybe you can summarize in 1 minute the conditions.
An embassy that has a diplomatic arrangement that provides the normal things that an ambassador from one country to another country would expect. We're not asking for anything more than would be provided to an ambassador from one country to another country. Just treating extraterrestrials with the same respect.
I think it was a similar question earlier. If the world doesn't reach world peace by 2035, is the embassy still going to be built before that year? And what will happen after 2035 if the embassy is not built till that date, that year?
We don't know. I don't have that information unless Steve has a special connection.
No,
I don't have that.
I've searched all around the world for a TARDIS, but I can't find one that works. Yep. Just boxes with nothing inside. Yep. Look, no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow, never mind 2035. The issue of world peace follows the construction of the embassy, I think. It's not a condition for us to build the embassy. If the Elohim require world peace, there's a question of what level of world peace. Is it absolutely no deaths anywhere, or is it no wars anywhere, or is it no declared wars anywhere? We don't know that. That's their condition. All we can do is build the embassy, make sure they know that there is a warm and gracious and respectful welcome awaiting them if they decide to come. In the meantime, it will operate as a major tourist facility.
Yeah, and maybe welcoming them with military airplanes would be a good idea. and especially when they try to shoot their UFO, their engine, their craft. Yeah.
If there are any representatives of government watching, we're happy to advise on a standard operating procedure for interacting with UFOs.
Absolutely. Sharon, there is a question from Bernardo. I don't know, Bernardo, are you from Italy? Do you speak English? Do you need translation? So please, a quick question. Time is running, and a lot more questions. I don't know at what time you want to finish. Anyway, we're going to keep all the questions and make a Q&A after the conference. So if you are interested to receive the answers to all these questions, please leave your email in the chat box, and it's going to be a pleasure for us to send you all the information. So go ahead, Fernando.
Buenos días.
Buenos días. ¿Español?
Sí, español. Buenos días.
Ok, buenos días.
Mi pregunta es la siguiente. Sabemos que los extraterrestres tienen una tecnología muy avanzada y yo desde hace 20 años o más he tenido cierto contacto a través de astrales y algún tipo de situación, pero sé que los extraterrestres tienen toda la tecnología para dársela a la humanidad en el tema de la salud. ¿Tienen contemplado ustedes hacer o junto con ellos en un siguiente proyecto un hospital o algo para poder acabar con las enfermedades en el planeta?
Very interesting question.
Gracias.
Thank you. So, Steve, did you understand the question?
No.
Okay, no problem. So I will answer maybe in French. Someone can translate me in French. So the question was as the extraterrestrial has a way higher level of civilization and technology and science than us, do we plan to offer some medical services or can they provide us with some medical advances to cure how do you say les maladies disease?
We expect that a major benefit of contact with extraterrestrials will be scientific knowledge exchange, and we've made provision in the concept master plan for a science institute that will help facilitate that when the extraterrestrial contact will be made. And of course, that can operate as a scientific institute, just doing general research up until the time we have contact.
Yeah, and for sure, one of the benefits to welcome them is we're going to benefit from their science, their technology, their wisdom. But I think that they will give it to us slowly. I think it's going to be step by step. And linked to the embassy project, there is a city that will be built, which will be called we don't know, but for now the name is Scientopolis. So this city will regroup all the best scientists in the world, and the extraterrestrials, the Elohim, will give some information and some technologies to help us cure all the disease on Earth. So yeah, that's one of the major points of welcoming an extraterrestrial. We will make a giant step in science and technologies. Yeah, well, I think they will go slowly because humans being what they are, it can be used also for negative purpose. So yeah, very good question. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, I think just to add to it, I think medical would be the first thing they'd assist us with.
You have a question in Spanish. I'm trying to translate. The translation is not good. If the translator can see a question from Alfonso at 9:06 and paste it in the chat.
9:06.
Oh, okay. I think he already did translate it. Perfect. Thank you, Alfonso. I believe that even if there will remain war in our world, we should build the embassy. It can also be a way to do a good publicity to the embassy, and therefore indirectly all the people could convert and finally get to the world peace, and that the Elohim can return. What do you think? To build the embassy while we're not peaceful as humanity?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I don't know if they will come.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Steve looks pretty optimistic. Why not? Why not? Maybe that would trigger something. Maybe that would trigger peace. Knowing that someone from another planet is coming, maybe it's going to bring us somewhere else in our awareness level. Yeah, very interesting question.
All right, so we're a little bit over our time. We can also bring the information of our contact. If you have any future emails, if I missed your questions, you can maybe paste it now to the chat for wait a couple of more minutes till 10 after the hour.
Yeah.
Daniel?
Maybe one more question.
More question?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the book Intelligent Design coming from your end, from our end? Daniel?
Yeah, definitely. It's coming from Maitreya Rael, who had an encounter with an extraterrestrial in 1973. So please go to rael.org. You can download free books in I don't know how many languages, I think 40 languages, something like this. So don't miss the opportunity to read the most important message in human history. So please, rael.org. The site is in 25 languages, something like this, beautiful site. So you will get a lot of information over there. And you can go also on the embassy website. I think there is a link for the Spanish, direct link in Spanish. I think Embajada Extraterrestre. I don't know, Eric, maybe you can, yeah? embajadaextraterrestre.org or etembassy.org, and you will have a lot of information about the project. And we are now building a new website with even more informations and more. You will find all the plans because Claude today could not show everything. So you will have a lot more information about the structure, the plans, the dimensions, the timeline of the project. So it's a beautiful website. So, but the most important is rael.org. You can be linked to everything in the movement.
All right. So with this very important question, we will conclude today's conference. Thank you so much to all of you that took your precious time to be with us today, to be part of this incredible project. Thank you for the wonderful translators who's been there always with enthusiasm and full of support, so we can spread this information to more places, more languages. Thank you to the technical team for supporting us for so long to prepare this event and the two other events we had. And thank you to our wonderful speakers, Daniel Turcotte, Stephen Goldie, and Claude Chauvet for your wonderful presentation. And we're on our way to the embassy. I wish you a beautiful morning, day, evening, wherever you are. Sending lots of love to all of you. And we'll see you on the next time. Bye.
And thank you to our wonderful host, Sharon. Everything went very smooth. And thank you so much. Thank you all for your presence. So technical team, you can stay. Speakers, you can stay too until the end. I would love to have a short meeting with you.